a lot of people tell ghost stories. Sometimes it's just a bit of fun, where you and your mates have a bit of a laugh, and maybe give one of them a sleepless night. Other times it can be a warning, like, be careful when crossing that bridge, because a child leant over the side, fell into the water, and died and now haunts that bridge. That sort of thing. There are various reasons. Though a particular type is the one that you tell yourself. Like if you wake up in the middle of your sleep, you hear noises or loud banging or just something. The sound of something going bump in the night. You tell yourself it's just the wind or something, that you can rationalise. Or the dog has just knocked over something. Yes, that's it. Then you're able to somewhat get back to sleep. In reality, it could be a burglar, in which case maybe that's the reason people call them ghosts. Because to most people, ghosts can't harm us, because they're dead. Whereas a burglar is very much alive, and they very much can hurt you. Of course, we all know there's no such thing as ghosts. Well, at least I hope you all do. I know there are some fantasists and utter idiots out there. But if ghosts were the only thing we had to fear, life would be so much easier and so much more pleasant. Tell me, dear listener, when are you listening to this podcast? Are you perhaps listening to this at night? Are you sitting alone in your own room? If you are, why not take a look around? Make sure that you are alone. And why not pop your head out into the hallway? But no, don't bother going down it, just look. Just have a nice, good, long look. Are you sure that there's no one there? Nobody hiding? Nobody waiting to jump out? No? Are you feeling now that it's difficult to keep your door open? You weren't afraid a minute ago, though the fact I put that idea in your head that there may be someone out there. Irrational as it may seem, you now feel that you aren't alone. Admittedly, part of you wants to keep the door open. Just for another minute or so. Just to absolutely make sure that there's nothing there. Well, go on then, you can have that extra minute if you like. But don't leave. Stay exactly where you are. Do not leave your room. Can you feel it then? The tension. Possibly the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. No? In that case, take a step outside of your room and close the door behind you. Are you able to do that? Do you feel unsecure, unsafe? Even though you are in your own house, your place of safety, a place in which you should feel safe in any room, in any corridor, anywhere you choose, you should feel safe within your own home. And yet you do not. You can now go back into your room and shut the door behind you, though now you may feel, well, what's a door going to do? A few moments ago that was a barrier, whereas now it's just as effective as hiding under your bedsheets. There's nothing you can do. Nowhere is safe. There's nowhere to go. You can no longer be safe, even within your own home. Relax. Everything's fine. There's most likely nothing out there, and that you're perfectly safe where you are. Notice I did say most likely, so possibly that's 0.1% who are listening to this, who, if they looked out of their room and they did stumble across a burglar or someone else, well, for one, I doubt they're still listening to this podcast, and two, I think the most effective thing that they could be doing, if they are listening to this podcast still, is call the police. Because despite what you may think, I can't actually help you in that situation. I can give you all the advice you like, though this is just a recording. And while recordings can give advice, they can't physically help you. You have to help yourself. But anyway, regardless, now that that's all over, allow me to tell you my ghost story, shall I? And this one is true. It happened to me a few weeks after my trial. Oh, don't believe me about the true part, do you? Well, keep listening to find out. And you may change your mind. Most people start these off with, "Oh, it was a cold and blustery night in the winter season, an hour which the dead cross over to the living." Of course it wasn't all of that. The night on which this occurred, it was remarkably calm. Nothing really appeared to be out of the ordinary whatsoever. And to be honest, it had been a pretty standard evening. Tom had been over to say hello and had gone back home. So me, James and Sally decided to watch Hot Fuzz. It had finally become obvious to both Tom and James that me and Sally were starting to become a bit of a thing again. Well, I think I could tell some disapproval from James. I think he overall accepted it. After all, it must be hard for him. The last person I was with was his mother. So of course he was going to be resentful for whoever I decided to have a relationship with next. But regardless, he never said anything about it. And there was never a point where we just came out and said it. Or even to each other. We all just sort of mutually knew and were aware that, yeah, this is happening. Don't come in Daddy's bedroom late at night. Otherwise you might find something much scarier than a ghost. When Hot Fuzz finally did finish, it was 11:30 at night. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Letting a 13-year-old stay up that late at night? On a school night? I didn't mention, but technically it would have been a school night. It was a weekday. But to all those people, doesn't matter. James is homeschooled. No, not by me. I would say I would make a fantastic teacher. Though, to be honest, other than teaching them basic life skills, I think the teacher who I hired, who came in the afternoons, did a much better job than I ever could. But regardless, this meant he could stay up late and then sleeping into the mornings. So there to everyone who was thinking that. But anyway, Sally said that she was just going to check on the Scarborough, just to make sure that they were settled for the night and weren't too restless. As she did that, I got James to help me clean up the mess of popcorn that had found its way into the crevices of my settee. A couple of minutes of trying to get it out later, which believe me is very difficult. I mean, it's difficult enough getting bits of popcorn out of crevices and settees, but when you have furry hands, the popcorn tends to then get stuck in one's fur. I don't know why I'm sounding so posh or using so posh words in this, but I've started, so I think I'll continue. But regardless, 2 minutes into the cleaning, we hadn't finished when the floor lamp in the corner of the room went off. We decided not to use the main lights, as to get the best cinematic experience of when in the dark or in a dimly lit room. However, now we entered a room of which in pitch black darkness. I immediately reached for my phone and turned on the torch. I then went over to the lamp and checked the switch. James asked me, "Has the bulb gone?" I replied to him, "God, I bloody hope not. Those are expensive LED bulbs. True, they do save me money in the long run, but God, they're practically twice the price up front. Besides, the bulb looks fine to me." Look. Nothing. Hang on, I'll try the main light. What the? No matter how much I tried, the main lights for the room would not turn on. I took in the salty air of the room that had been filled by the salted popcorn. I then turned back to James and said, "Must be the fuse box." "Either that or we've just had a power cut." "No, look, the standby light's still on the TV. If we had a power cut, then that would have gone off as well." Well, what about the lamp that plugs into the wall? Yeah, you're right. That's not on a separate circuit like the lights are. Out of sheer curiosity, I grabbed the TV remote and tried to turn on the TV. The standby LED changed from red to green. However, the screen failed to turn on. James then suggested, maybe you've got it set to an HDMI with nothing in. Then how come when I try to switch to a different source, nothing comes up? I don't like this. This is not just odd, but it's also irritating. A combination I really don't like. As I said this, my phone's LED light went out as well. I tried turning on the screen, though it just showed up as completely black. Okay, now I'm really worried. James, get over here and stay close. James came and stood next to me. I could only just make out the outline of his figure as he came and stood next to me. As soon as I knew James was next to me, I said to him, okay, I don't think this can be fixed by a fuse box. For all I know, there's a perfectly rational explanation for all of this. Though to be honest, I don't want to be walking around my own house in the dark anyway. So what we're going to do, we're going to go out to the garden, get Sally, and then the three of us will spend the night at Tom's. In the morning, we'll be able to see and hopefully find out what the hell this is happening. But for now, I think the best thing we should do is just get out. Dad, I can't admit, this is freaking me out. Will you come with me so I can go get my stuff? No, just leave it here for the night. Now, hold my hand and stay beside me. We'll walk slowly and quietly towards the garden. Isn't it best though to run in these types of situations? Normally I would agree, however I cannot see a bloody thing. I can only barely make out doorways. So to avoid tripping over everything, we'll just go slowly. Do you think that there's someone here with us? I don't know, but after everything that's happened of late, I'm not taking any risks. Come on. And with that, we slowly made our way out of the living room to go and join Sally. We managed to make our way to the glass double doors that led directly into the garden. It was still unlocked, so I knew that Sally must still be out somewhere in the garden, checking up on the Scarvers. I opened the door as slowly and as gently as I could. I then proceeded to exit my house and into the garden, with James following right thereafter. I then proceeded to slowly close the door again, however this time locking the door behind me. One, to make sure that, obviously if we were going to be going to Tom's house, it would be good to have the house locked up, to not let burglars get in, but also if there was something or someone in there, to not let them get out and after us. I was tempted to call out for Sally, but 2 reasons I decided not to. One, there may be something or someone out there, and that would be alerting them to my position. And 2, I didn't want to scare or alert the Scarver either. Although they still considered me their alpha, I still didn't want them to be on high alert when I was walking through the place in the dark. I then saw a light up ahead, towards the midsection of my garden. It looked like a handheld torch. I could see it was lighting up one of the Scarvers, though the beams of light that reflected off its fur coat beamed back onto the person who was holding the torch. Thankfully, I was able to make them out. It was Sally. Both myself and James, still holding hands, quickly and quietly made our way over. Sally greeted us with a bit of a surprised expression on her face, asking why we came out to check on the Scarvers with her. I quickly explained everything that had just happened. She first obviously laughed it off and said that we were just being ridiculous, but then when I continued to keep insisting, she then said, well, there must be some rational explanation for it. But then as she said that, the light on her torch began to dim. Our one source of light was disappearing, just like all the others had. The 3 of us slowly edged our way backwards towards the fence. As we did so, the light from the torch fully went out. We were now left in fully pitch-black darkness again. Except, for a second, I saw an ominous bluish glow. It was coming from my house. I could see this light, that was most likely extremely dim. In the pitch-black darkness it seemed bright and vibrant. coming from within. I could see it through the glass doors. It only lasted a second or so, though it did confirm something. I don't own any lights that are blue or have a blue tint, so someone or something was definitely within my house. And unfortunately, the fence ran through the entire perimeter of my garden and was designed to be unclimbable. There was no gate or exit through the fence. It was designed that way to be a security measure. The only way to get out of the garden and to fully leave my premises so that we could go to Tom's was to go through my house. We all slowly edged our way forward, keeping strictly to the fence so that nothing could sneak up behind us. As we continued to move, we could hear nothing but silence, other than the sound of the grass being stepped on under our feet. Which reminded me, myself and James weren't wearing any shoes. Obviously we weren't planning to go out into the garden, though if one of us trod on a stone or something else sharp, not only was it obviously going to hurt an awful lot, but it was also going to give our location away. We had no light, so we just had to keep treading as carefully as possible. The Scarborough didn't seem to be bothered by whatever was happening, at least from the vague sort of shadows and outlines that I could see and make of them. So we continued. Pat, 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 pat. Rustle, 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 rustle. These were the sounds we made. We continued going on. We finally made it to the glass doors. I unlocked them. As I opened the door, there was a chill. I don't mean in the sense of I had a feeling, I mean literally like a almost gust of air, like a suction had been released as I opened the door. The inside of my house felt cold, as if all of the heat within it had been absorbed. I entered first, though before I did, I took my arm out of my shirt sleeve and just sort of waved it in the doorway, just in case there was anyone in there and they were feeling pretty trigger happy. Although satisfied with the results in nothing happening to it, I put my arm back in the sleeve and slowly made my way in, trying not to make any creaks or sounds possible. I couldn't really see anything apart from black shapes and outlines. It was at that point where my mind was almost starting to play tricks on me. It was like my brain was sort of trying to compensate for the lack of information it was receiving from my eyes, projecting colours that weren't actually there. You know, when you shut your eyes extremely tightly and then open them, and all the colours and that you see just seem to be wrong and they seem to be flashing, or if you shine a torch in your eyes and then close them tightly, you can still see that light in your mind. It was kind of like that. I realised that I was starting to become paranoid, and paranoia, well, that leads to irrational and rational decisions, which is something I really didn't want to do in this moment of time. I then reached outside to grab James by the hand. James was also holding Sally's hand, so that the three of us couldn't be separated. As we began to move forward through my house, I stuck my free hand out in front of me and tried to use it to sort of guide us through and to make sure we didn't walk into anything, or anyone for that matter. For the most part, as we walked through the house in the pitch-black darkness, other than the fact that it was pitch-black darkness, everything seemed to be remarkably normal, remarkably silent, until we saw that ominous light blue glow that we had seen before. However, this time it was illuminating through the doorway that led to my basement. This did two things. One, confirmed to me that definitely there was some sort of thing or person in here, and that it was able to move. Seeing how this light, although appearing bright to us, would not actually be bright enough to illuminate enough so that we would see it in the distance in the garden through some glass doors from all the way down in the basement. And that also meant that we were free from it while we were upstairs. When I thought about it, we had no idea if this thing was dangerous or malicious. At all, we were just assuming. But regardless, in that brief glimpse of light, I was able to see the front door. As quickly and quietly as I possibly could, I got myself, James and Sally to the front door. I used my key to unlock it. The click of the lock echoed throughout the house. Had it always been that loud? Or was it the fact that our senses were now on hyper alert? Or it could be that the fact that when you lose one of your senses, for example in this case we basically lost all sight and vision due to being in pitch black darkness, our other senses had compensated, so our hearing was pretty sharp and acute. Myself and James already had naturally ever so slightly better sight and vision than Sally would have, but even so it was hardly helping us now. I then proceeded to take my key out of the door. However, as I was doing that, we heard the sound of creaking, as something was rising up the stairs. As we heard it and turned to look, we saw that ominous blue glow again. However, rather than being a single pulse that lasted for less than a second, this one was continuously pulsing, getting faster and faster and faster, almost like a heartbeat. The heartbeat of something that maybe was panicking, or was on a hunt pursuing us. Either way, we had to get out right now. I had seemed to lost my cognitive ability in the stress and panic of the situation at hand. My hand was just scrambling all over the handle. Finally, I was able to make a firm grip. I pushed on the handle as hard and as quickly as I possibly could. As I swung the door open, I unfortunately swung it into James and Sally, knocking them both over into a heap on the floor. It made a loud bang. I could tell from the creaking that whatever was coming up the stairs was nearly at the top, and as the light got closer, it seemed to appear brighter. However, the advantage was I was able to see. I quickly dropped to the floor. James was crying out in pain. He had twisted his ankle on the fall. Sally, however, seemed to be alright and was able to get up on her own. There wasn't time for James to limp out of here, so I quickly picked him up and threw him over my shoulders. The three of us, with thanks to me carrying James, were able to run out of the house. I was able to slam the door shut by using my foot as I exited it. I told Sally to reach into my right pocket and grab the keys to lock the door. She first of all protested, saying that we've got to get out of here now, but then I argued that we needed to trap this thing inside here, or at least slow it down. She then agreed and quickly locked the door as quickly as she could. Outside we could see the street lamps. We quickly ran to Tom's house as fast as we could, myself still carrying James, and I had neglected to pick up my trainers while in my house, so I was in my socks. When we reached Tom's house, we rang the bell and banged and kicked down the door. Almost. Tom then finally answered after a couple of minutes. He only appeared to be half awake. He was in nothing but some underwear and a dressing gown. Before Tom had a time to ask any questions, we immediately let ourselves in. We then told Tom to lock the door, which he proceeded to. He had now fully woken up and demanded an explanation for why we were here at this hour, and that we had just forcefully forced our way into his house. We then proceeded to give him the details of everything that happened that evening. Tom was able to make a call to USP. They arrived in just under half an hour. There was 4 of them. They cordoned off my house and sent in a drone with a camera on it to search inside. Hours passed, it finally reached morning, sunrise. None of us had really gotten any sleep at that point. We'd managed to get sort of lightly sleep for maybe a couple hours at a time, but then would proceed to wake up later on, and then struggle to get back to sleep. We then got a knock from one of USP's personnel at Tom's door. It was about 6 in the morning. As Tom answered, the USP personnel said that the problem had been resolved, and the creature that they had found was known as a light devourer. As we stared out of Tom's doorway, we could see down the street my house, and we could see a huge, restrained, caterpillar-like creature. However, it was translucent, with its heart being visible, being that light sort of pale blue colour that seemed to pulsate every time it would beat. The USP personnel explained that they would start off small, about the size of a regular-sized caterpillar. However, as they absorbed light, as well as heat, it would increase their body mass. They usually live on dark planets that get very little or no sunlight at all. In my front garden, one of USP's personnel found a small little black pot with the lid discarded next to it. It wasn't much larger than one of those old film reel pots that you would get the negatives in when you go to develop film from a camera, and then they give you the negative back in one of those little pots. I imagine to some people listening now this may be nostalgic, hearing that, and to others who have only ever taken and seen digital photos will have no idea what I'm on about. But they reckoned that someone had gone to one of these dark planets and taken one of these creatures in that small pot to avoid having any light leading to it, and then putting it through my letterbox. Most likely when I was watching Hot Fuzz, so that none of us would hear the letterbox open and close. They theorised that it was probably someone angry about the results of my recent trial. We weren't in any malicious danger. It only consumed and absorbed light as well as heat. We were told that power should return to my house within an hour, and within that hour USP left. I was then finally allowed back in my house. James still didn't feel safe spending the night there, so I allowed him to sleep over at Tom's that night. Something must have been disturbing Sally, as the following morning she vomited. I kindly helped her to clean it up, not before putting on some rubber gloves, of course, and holding my breath as long as I possibly could. But other than that, everything's back to normal. Or as normal as things essentially get. But then again, as I always say, normality is what one perceives it to be. So, did you enjoy my ghostly tale? I told you it was 100% true. What? You're disappointed that there's no ghosts in it? Doesn't have to be a ghost kind of sort of ghostly tale. I know that kind of goes against literally what the title next says. But think about it. There are loads of TV shows and that out there, and movies and that do the whole, ghostly goings on, and then it turns out, it wasn't a ghost after all. This is no different. Except this actually did happen. Though I am curious to know who sent it. I doubt it was McKendry. Maybe it was just some random person who was angry with the results of my trial. Who knows? Unfortunately, because of the power drain, all the CCTV footage is also gone. So it seems that I'll never know who did it. But hey, no one was hurt, and we're all okay now. So I suggest I'll just move on. And hopefully, maybe if they're listening to this, hopefully they can move on as well.